Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
We now begin the week after the Nobel Prize Awards for 2021. So people in different fields have taken note of people who are of interest to them, those in chemistry, physics, biology, etc., or in economics, literature. The most interesting one and the most significant one, not just for us because we are journalists, but also because journalists rarely feature on Nobel Prize lists. That was the award of shared Nobel Prize to two journalists. One, Maria Ressa of the Philippines, who spent a lifetime of career in the CNN, internationally very well known. Second, internationally a bit less known, nevertheless equally brave, if not more, that is Dmitry Muratov of Russia. So these two have got a shared Nobel Prize. By this time, I'm sure you've seen their interviews. They've been all over the media. You also have some sense of what they've been doing and the degree of difficulty they've faced. So I will not repeat all of that, but I will try and put this in perspective because this is the clutter. Why should there be clutter in Nobel Prize for journalists? Let me tell you, first of all, these are the first Nobel Prizes for journalists since 1935 to a gentleman called Ossietzky, and I will tell you more about him, a German man who was in a concentration camp when he got the Nobel Prize and effectively died there, died in a hospital under government surveillance and government detention. So after 1936, you can count the number of years it's taken since then, it's 86. Now, if you just go technically, you might think that there was one journalist who got the award in 2011, but that's qualified. There are some differences there, and I will explain also that to you. So that I will clarify. I will also tell you what these people have done and how remarkable their courage has been. And also, why is it that a bunch of journalists got Nobel Prizes between 1902 and 1935 and did not for 86 years. So what changed in the world? What was the situation earlier? What is the situation now? Because all of this is linked to politics of the day and the state of democracy in the world. So that is the headline point from this that I'm trying to draw. So first of all, Maria Ressa, you've seen her pictures, you can see again, salute her. Dmitry Muratov deserves a salute. Nobel Prize Committee says they've been given the awards for their efforts to safeguard the freedom of expression, which is a precondition for democracy and lasting peace. Good point. The Commission also said that they've got the awards because free, independent and fact-based journalism serves to protect against abuse of power, lies and war propaganda. Because a lot of the dictatorial regimes actually build up jingoism in their support, because jingoism is a very important element of populism, and that can lead to warlike propaganda. Now, Muratov in 1993 in Russia, he set up a newspaper called Novaya Gazeta. Novaya Gazeta, and he since then has exposed a lot that's gone wrong in Putin's Russia. And Putin's Russia is a tough place to be in for a journalist. I don't know any place that's really nice to be for a journalist these days, because in any case, even if you are in a much in a freer democracy, you are still attacked on the social media all the time and constant calumny goes on. So those are hazards that journalists have to face everywhere now. But look at Russia. In Russia, you could get killed. So this newspaper, Novaya Gazeta, has had 6 journalists and others associated with it, journalists, a lawyer, and a human rights activist associated with it, assassinated over these years, killed 6 of them. Among them, the most important, the most famous or infamous case was Anna Politkovskaya, who was killed, shot in front of her apartment. Why? Because she had been exposing the excesses in the Chechen war. So she was killed as just to set an example for others that this is what happens to you. So 6 got killed. She was killed outside her apartment in 2006. Now, this publication has exposed corruption, electoral fraud, police violence, and Russian mercenaries Russian military excesses, but also Russian mercenaries, because Russia has set up these mercenary groups who go to countries of Russia's interest and operate there. In fact, about one of them, the Wagner Group, my young colleague Pia Krishnan Kutty spoke in her regular feature now, World 360, for what they might be doing in Mali, because Mali government in the Sahel region of Africa wants to come and operate there. And these mercenaries are operating in Syria, Africa, and elsewhere. So this paper has been exposing them. Maria Ressa, on the other hand, she's been exposing abuse of power, the use of violence, and the growing authoritarian tendencies in her country. More importantly, she's interesting because she's also been talking much more aggressively and much more with great clarity about the abuse of social media platforms by dictatorial regimes. She's been arrested more than once. In fact, she is carrying a 12-year sentence on her for something called cyber libel. What is cyber libel? That you defamed somebody on internet. I mean, if you applied that test in our country, for example, I think you will have to build a lot of jails to put all those who commit cyber libel in jail. But in the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte's government has passed these really strong, powerful laws. He just wants to be able to control all social media discourse, all internet discourse, or digital discourse by himself. This is his dictatorial tool. So she said when she was arrested, and I will share the quote with you, she said, "My arrest doesn't hurt me because it only makes me more resolute, because I see firsthand how the law is bent to the point that it is broken." Right? You keep bending something, it goes bending, then one day, one moment, it breaks. I have seen firsthand how the law is bent to the point that it is broken. What we are seeing is a death by 1,000 cuts of our democracy. Now, you can't see Duterte being happy with this, right? She spent a night in the National Bureau of Investigation on detention. Her detention became a global issue. He's very well known, in fact, much better known than Dmitry Muratov. She was in 2018 Time Magazine's Person of the Year as well. She's also a specialist on Islamic terrorism in Southeast Asia, has written 2 books about it. In 2012, she left a flourishing career in CNN, etc., and set up Rappler, which is a website in the Philippines. This website focuses a lot more on fact-checking. And they fact-check on all the stuff that is put out 24/7 by 60/60, that is 60 minutes and 60 seconds, by the humongous troll army that Duterte has on internet. So they keep putting stuff there, and her website keeps on countering it or fact-checking it. She's also exposed drug war, right? A drug war that Duterte lost, where he says, shoot anybody. So that was a drug war in which a lot of people were killed in completely extra-constitutional encounters. So she exposed a lot of that. Her conviction, however, was because she ran an article on her website that showed a connection, or an alleged connection, between a leading businessman in the Philippines, Wilfredo Keng, and the top judge of the country. So because of that, she was convicted. 2017, the Philippines Securities and Exchange Commission also filed cases of tax evasion against her, which she calls as nonsense. This is a playbook that most democracies are now becoming familiar with. Hers is the first Nobel Prize for a Filipino. What has she done to earn it? Rappler still has 7 serious active cases against it. And she also has several. So she says, this is the time now to act against disinformation all around the world. These populist digital authoritarians. Interesting usage. Around the world, all around the world, these populist digital authoritarians are using the scorched earth policy to get elected. They can use the formal powers of their post, the tools of democracy, to cave institutions in from within, right? What happens when termites eat up a building from inside? It caves from within. It's time to end the whack-a-mole approach to the technology platforms and fix what they have broken. So, you just can't do band-aid treatments anymore. You have to fix what is broken. And she's also spoken out on Facebook. And this has happened in a week when this Facebook whistleblower has come and spoken to Congress and given this devastating testimony on Facebook. Then she goes on to say, they are, that is dictators, they are by design dividing us and radicalizing us. This isn't a free speech issue. This isn't just a free speech issue. It is not the fault of the users of these platforms and media. These platforms aren't merely mirroring humanity. They are making all of us our worst selves. जब आपको गाली पड़ती है, then you tend to also think मैं भी गाली देता हूँ, right? If somebody abuses me, I'll also abuse, right? I know, I say I don't do it. I've also said early on, I'm relatively a newer user, say on Twitter, but I said I'll never block anybody. I will never report anybody. I will never mute anybody. So I don't do it. I don't put any restrictions, but I can tell you it can be traumatic at times. And you say, why not? Why give people the pleasure of attacking you all the time, knowing that you know what they are doing? At least let them do it in anonymity. But then, no, I follow the Dalai Lama's advice. Let everything negative come at you, right? It will make you stronger. And also that there is no point hiding from calumny, right? Because you know that if you're sure calumny will not stick, because the saying in Hindi, man changa to kathauti mein ganga, that if your heart is clear, right? If your conscience is clean, then even what you're carrying in a little vessel made of wood can be the Ganga, can be the holy Ganga. You don't have to go to the Ganga and bring water from there. You can carry your own Ganga with you if your heart is clear. So that is the advice some of us try to follow, but it's tough. And she's right. She says that these platforms are making some of us, they are not merely mirroring humanity. They are actually making us our worst selves. Sometimes when I also get irritated with somebody too much, I say, this person brings out the worst in me, right? And I'm sure it happens to all of you at some times, right? But then that is when you require a lot of patience, experience, right? And a lot of good sense to make sure that you also don't become bad because others are being bad. But social media, digital platforms now create those situations. And she says that this is creating an emergent behavior that is now destroying our world. And then she adds, it's not a coincidence that divisive leaders are the ones who do best on social media. You saw how well was Donald Trump doing, for example. Now, Muratov, on the other hand, he says Russian journalism is being suppressed right now. We will try to help people who are now recognized as foreign agents. Jisko marzi, they call anybody foreign agents and throw them out of the country. They are being attacked or expelled from the country. Journalists who got killed in his paper, Anita Politkovskaya, I told you about, but I will also give you the list of the 6 chronologically. So there is Igor Domenikov in 2000, Yuri, if I pronounce the name right, Shoshikhin, 2003, Anna Politkovskaya, 2006, Anastasia Baburova, 2009, then lawyer Stanislav Markelov, 2009, and human rights activist Natalia Estemirova in 2009. So in fact, 3 killed in 2009. It also so happens that under the Russian law, the deadline for solving a murder case is 15 years, which means in 15 years, if you cannot solve it, investigations end in that case. And it's ironical that just the day before he got his Nobel Prize, Muratov, the 15-year limitation on investigation on Anna Politkovskaya's assassination ended. So now that is a dead murder. Nobody killed Anna Politkovskaya. So you can see the degree of difficulty these people have wrestled with. These are enormously, incredibly brave people to get this far. Everybody can envy them for their Nobel Prizes, but see what it took them to get there. Most of us do not have it in our guts to be able to handle that. And when somebody does, they deserve the Nobel Prize. In the 1980s, there was a liberal newspaper which sort of grew as Glasnost and Perestroika grew in the Soviet Union of the 80s, Komsomolskaya Pravda, right? That was called the golden era of Russian journalism, Soviet journalism, because things were opening up. Then came Putin, and then things changed in Russia. So in 93, he launched his paper, Novaya Gazeta. Since then, the paper has got 60 plus awards, is now recognized to be among the bravest publications in the world. So his reaction is that I am laughing. I didn't expect it at all. I am crazy here. That you would expect him to say. And then he said, we will be puffed up with this prize for Russian journalism, which is being repressed. Russian journalism is being repressed. That's all. We will try to help people who are now recognized as foreign agents, who are now being routed and expelled from the country, because that is how the playbook in Putin's Russia works. Now, I will give you a list of journalists who have got the Nobel Prize and the periods, and then give you a little analytical point with opinion on why I think these periods are so significant. So, the last journalist to get the Nobel Peace Prize was Karl von Ossietzky. That was in 1935. He was awarded in 1935, given in 1936. Remember, take your mind back to Germany of mid-30s. It was Hitler at his peak, right? So at that point, he was speaking out. He was speaking out against war. He was speaking about, in fact, he even had the courage to write earlier that Germany was carrying out military development and military acquisitions, which it was forbidden from doing under the Treaty of Versailles. Treaty of Versailles had led to the end of the First World War. And so he was victimized, he was jailed, he was into a concentration camp, he was asked to apologize, refused to do it. Then there was a global campaign for his release. Hitler didn't bother. I mean, if he bothered, why would he be Hitler, right? And then the Nobel Committee gave him the prize in 1935. He was not allowed to go and get it. He was in fact kept in concentration camp, and he was asked to refuse it. And maybe if he had turned down the Nobel Prize, maybe they would have told him, okay, you can go home now. But he did no such thing. He carried on in the concentration camp and ultimately died as a sick man in a hospital under government detention. So it took that kind of courage. Just before him, Norman Angell, again a peacenik of sorts. In 1933, he was given the award for having exposed by his pen the illusion of war and presenting a coming plea for international cooperation as peace. Now, Norman Angell, Angell, he actually wrote a landmark book. That book was called The Great Illusion. This is after he had gone to America. He migrated to America, and he wrote this book, and he's saying this idea that military power or subjugation of another nation or colonialism that can get a country great commercial and economic advantage is a fantasy. It does not happen like that. So that's why he said that the idea of military conquest is completely nonsensical. Now, that to say that in the 30s, particularly in Europe, was very, very tough, and particularly around Germany. So he got the award in 1933, and before that there were a couple more. I will not go into the details. There was Alfred Hermann Fried in 1911, Ernesto Teodoro Moreta in 1907. He was also a militant pacifist, a peacenik. And then one that I said is in 2011, but not exactly for journalism. Also, although the recipient was a journalist, that is Tawakkul Karman of Yemen. Now, she was a journalist. She also set up a women journalist, very powerful and very activist association. But she essentially got the prize as an activist because she ran this big campaign for the ouster of her dictatorial president, that is Ali Abdullah Saleh. Now, why is it so that you get a flurry of these journalistic Nobels between 1902 and 1935, and then none for 86 years, right? Why did that happen? So first of all, remember that period, 1902 to 1935, that was the period of world wars. 2 world wars took place at that point of time. Several other conflicts took place, right? Several other conflicts took place in Europe and elsewhere. So there were a lot of journalists talking against the dominant thought process of the day, which is let's go to war, which is nationalism. So that is what happened at that time. Then it was an act of courage to speak against warmongering or to speak in favor of peace. After the Second World War, a lot of the world became democratic and it became quite open. The other part became very dictatorial, Warsaw Pact, China, places like that. So you did not expect any freedoms there anyway. Other democracies, freedoms were greater. Of course, sometimes they were taken away, as they were in India during the emergency. But otherwise, journalistic freedoms were taken for granted in the democracies, but they were not even expected. The complete lack of freedom of the press was taken completely for granted in dictatorships and communist countries. So that is how the world got divided. What's happened over the past couple of decades is the world has changed again. One, a lot of the former dictatorships have become democracies. Poland, Hungary, right? I can give you many examples. They've become democracies. Russia, a kind of democracy, right? But at the same time, even the existing democracies have become more illiberal. So I would comment to you Fareed Zakaria's book, Rise of the Illiberal Democracy. He saw this trend many years back. Now leaders can get elected, so they are democratically elected. See Erdogan, for example, or Putin. Putin is elected, but then they can use methods. Duterte is elected. Then they can use methods which, as Maria Ressa described, is using their own formal powers of office, then using formal structures of the state, and then digital media, social media, and then the misuse of laws. That's why I thought understanding this year's Nobel Peace Prizes for journalists is very important. And also these prizes are very significant and inspirational.